Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Comic Vault. I'm Captain Logan, and joining me tonight is Austin, the Day Ghost.
Connor, your dance lessons are really paying off.
And we have Connor Nielsen. Welcome to a Vault, Connor. It's been a long time since you've done any comics with us.
Oh my word, I'm trying to remember the last time. It's been forever.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you've done comics with us. I just can't think of what.
Yeah, the first thing we did together was Why the Last Man.
Well, yes, of course.
And I'm trying to think if there's been anything we've done
else
together
at all?
since
Yeah,
then.
because of course I was going to superhero. I was like, what
from
superhero
watching
stuff have we done together? I don't know that we have really. Maybe you probably popped in here and there when I was doing like new stuff issue to issue. Maybe not.
No, I mean I wasn't contributing then. I mean I would comment and stuff on those videos, but yeah.
Anyway, welcome, folks.
Gone full circle.
So once again, usually I do Superhero Rewind on Monday nights. I've been traveling. I didn't have a chance to put one together, and it is Bat March, so we wanted to do something Batman related tonight. So naturally, the first major thing we're doing for Bat March, besides the single Batman comics I'm doing every day, pardon me, for it not it's late. I'm not feeling the best tonight. Everybody bear with me. But besides the single issue comic reviews I'm doing for Not Spawn Year, naturally, of course, the first big Batman thing we're doing is Catwoman, is a kind of more Batman spin-off sort of thing. Although Batman's presence is very much felt through this whole thing, and this is very much a Batman book, and it will be interesting to talk about, I think. So we're going back to Black Label. Lately, Austin and I have been doing a lot of more recent things. It's been kind of fun to dip our toe into stuff from the last few years because I've been out of the loop for a while, and DC has put out a whole lot of standalone, singular, like miniseries and graphic novels, and we've been dipping our toe into that stuff. So we did we did that Supergirl book that the movie is going to be based on. Austin, help me. What was that called again?
Woman of Tomorrow.
Woman of Tomorrow. That's right. And then what was the last thing we did?
Batman the Imposter.
That's what it was. Yeah, last week. I think just last week we did Batman the Imposter, which. Or was that maybe a couple weeks ago?
See, I thought it was a few weeks ago, but maybe.
And we enjoyed that one quite a bit. And now we're getting into Catwoman Lonely City, which people have been requesting. This is probably the second most requested Black Label book when I was putting my feelers out, asking people what we should talk about next to Batman the Imposter. And Connor sent me a message a couple weeks ago and had a laundry list of books that if we covered, he wanted to be invited for, and this was one of them. So I'm probably going to give Connor the floor first right away and tell us what he thinks of this book right after Austin gives us a brief synopsis.
Oh, no.
This comes out a couple of years ago and was written, drawn, lettered, and colored by the wonderful Cliff Chang, who is a artist that I have always admired. He did... Speaking of Vaughn, Connor, he did Paper Girls, and he has a really distinctive art style, particularly, though, a distinct color style, and this looks not just like Paper Girls, but you can tell it's the same guy, and the way he uses splashes of color and stuff. But, yeah, Austin, give us a real quick breakdown. Just tell us what this book is about.
Okay, so remember, like, 8,000 videos ago when I said every character in comics has their Dark Knight Returns or Old Man Logan? Now Catwoman has her Old Man Logan. So this book is...
Yeah, I was going to call this the Dark Cat Returns.
Oh yeah, that works. That works. So this book is, like I said, is about an older Catwoman. And Batman died 10 years before this starts in this day called Fool's Day, where the Joker does his thing and it ends up getting Gordon and Batman killed. And Catwoman's blamed for Batman's death and is thrown in jail. Flash forward to the present, where Two-Face is now the mayor of Gotham, and it's very much like a totalitarian Gotham, where they've removed all crime, but you have like an army of Batmen running the streets that like make sure there's no crime, and Harvey Dent gets Catwoman released as part of an election strategy, and then things just kind of blow up where she's trying to do her Catwoman-y stuff, and she puts a crew together with this one guy who's the son of somebody that I think is supposed to be a comic book character, but I wasn't sure who that was.
I wasn't either.
Yeah, you got Killer Croc, and then later on you get the Riddler, his daughter, and Poison Ivy.
And we mix it
And-
up with a lot of Batman villains here and there.
Mhm.
Like Clayface makes an appearance.
Well, and I think part of the fun with this kind of thing with like no matter what character it is just seeing what the world looks like, right? And kind of bringing in as many characters as you can to see like, oh, what are they doing in this premise?
Kind
at
of
this
like
point.
Dark Knight Returns, except a lot more of them here. This is
Mhm.
this is a lot more of the modern. We got to throw in every major Batman villain you've heard of, or at least pay homage to them. Like even at the end, there's no Scarecrow, but we got to bring in the Fear Toxin. There is no Mr. Freeze, but we got to bring in a freeze gun.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Just kind of have fun with all that stuff.
I think Harley Quinn is mentioned somewhere, maybe.
Yes, because they say that she's also dead. Yeah, and Barbara Gordon, because I can see on the art, she's running against Harvey Dent for mayor, and through Catwoman's shenanigans, she kind of sets up this like protest, like a riot in her name, and it sets off a whole chain of events to dethrone Harvey Dent. Basically, that's your basic premise.
Yeah, thanks for that synopsis, Austin.
You're welcome. There's so much stuff. I was like, God, where do I start? Where do I end?
Yeah.
These Black Label issues are crazy long.
Yeah, they're
It's
pretty
only
long.
A 4-issue miniseries, but it's
like
200
250,
pages.
300 pages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly a heist plot where Catwoman is trying to break into the Batcave in order to find out the mystery of something called Orpheus, which is the last word that Batman says to Catwoman when he dies. And
Yeah,
there's
it was sled.
the big mystery as to what exactly that is. I'm sorry, what?
Said it was his sled. Anyways, moving on.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that. Hey, Connor, why don't you get us started here on the critique, will you? Just give us your basic feelings about this after finishing it, and then we'll jump off of wherever you take us. Go ahead.
So, Catwoman Lonely City was probably, I don't know, my most anticipated comic book project in several years. My brother was working at a comic book shop when this was coming out, and I remember I was there day one to pick up that issue. I, of course, didn't read it.
Yeah, I didn't even hear about it until people started asking us to do that, because like I said, I'm so out of touch right now with new comics. It's been like Christmas, really, just unwrapping packages.
Yeah. How much did you guys hear before I froze up?
You
Most
ended
of it.
on, of course I didn't read it. That was when.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
I
I
was
just
still-
assumed that was like it.
I didn't
like,
mean
you
to
get a
interrupt.
punchline.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Oh, no,
I jumped
no.
in because you dropped out there for a second. I was trying to fill in for you until you came back.
I guess, no, I froze right after I stopped talking. Great. Awesome. Cool. Sometimes timing's great until you ruin it. But yeah, so I think Cliff Chiang is, I think, probably my favorite living comic book artist on account of Darwin Cook no longer being alive.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I love him. I think like his work
he's
on
not that
Brian-
far removed from Cook. Like there's some similarities there, so I can see why you're a big fan of his.
Yeah, they have a lot of like kind of cartoonist sensibilities, the way they kind of lay out things, the way they kind of structure action sequences. I really like their stuff, and you're right, especially with his colors. When he goes into like what you have up right now, that sort of indigo purple,
Yep.
like with the black,
That's
I'm
my
a
favorite
sucker.
color. I get real excited about pages like this.
Ooh,
Yep.
it's so good. And so yeah, I was very excited to pick this
No,
up.
give guys like this a cartoon show.
Yes. Yeah. His work on Paper Girls is wonderful. I was first introduced to his work on Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman with the New 52,
Yeah.
which I think he knocks out of the park. He wasn't there for every issue, but he was there for the big ones, and I love it. I'm kind of putting this off because as a means of coping, because I didn't really like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm trying to think about this because it's like there's a little I kind of had a little bit of like a kind of going back and forth while I was reading this. It should go without saying, the art is spectacular throughout this entire thing.
And that's all Connor wants to talk about, because he doesn't like the story, apparently.
It's not that I hated the story. I think that like I think this is the first time he's ever like written anything, and I want to give him some props when it comes to writing. I think maybe he did like some Batman black and white short stories, but anything like this, I think it's the first time he's written anything like this.
Anything so huge, yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah, I didn't know he had any writing jobs.
He's not falling into what usually happens when when artists get into the writer's chair, which is just, I just want to draw everything, right? You know, if I'm a Green Lantern artist and I get to hop into the writer's chair, I want to draw Kilowog, I want to draw, Badge, I want to draw Bzzd, I want to draw just all of them. I just want to draw everything. And so he still is kind of finding a way to incorporate parts about the Batman mythology, references to like Batman and other media, but also trying to tell his own story here, which is cool. Like, he's more credible as a writer than I think other artists transitioning.
Yeah, that all feels like it's in service of a story as opposed to the equivalent of like movie set pieces, like trying to force a narrative around them. I didn't have that with this.
I just think as a writer where he really struggles is balancing the world building with his structure, and I think this is like too long. I think it could have just been 3 issues.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I think that the backstory we get with Fool's Day is pretty good, and I honestly think like if this played out linearly, I would have been more compelled by it throughout.
You didn't like the nonlinear storytelling?
It's not that it was
too spread out.
I thought it was a little haphazard. I kind of wondered why we were getting pieces of it in the order we were getting them.
That's what I was having with it. Is by the time I had all the pieces, I was more compelled by the status quo. But it took me a while to be compelled enough by what I was seeing. But I also think it becomes too sprawling, and I think that he struggles to really bring the different subplots together. Primarily, the more political angle of what's going on, I think, is pretty clumsy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it's not a complete loss. But I think final issue, I was kind of just reading the dialogue as fast as I could so I could be done with it. So sadly, it's kind of a mixed bag, but I think I'm going to say I'm not feeling
Wow.
Okay, so I was coming into this, giant weight on my shoulders going, oh man, like I didn't really like this book that much. Like it was okay, but Cap and Connor are going to really like it, and I'm going to be sitting there like, oh, I'm sorry, guys. Lifted. Thank you.
Happy to do that for you.
Well, Austin, what were your reservations about, or your reservations with this?
So it was a lot of what Connor had. I also think, again, this book is it is beautiful. This clearly all of DC's talent art-wise is going to Black Label. This is a wonderful looking book. It's so weird because I went into this like, oh, here we go, this is gonna be great, and for a while it had me, and then just slowly as it went on, like it was just kind of like, I don't know, like it's just kind of losing me. And at a certain point, I had the same thing Connor did, where it was just kind of reading it to get it through, and it kind of turns into schlock by the end, and like that's unfortunate. This book kind of breaks my heart at a point because they kill off my second favorite Batman villain, and my reaction was good riddance. I I really was sad that their Killer Croc was so lame, but is what it is, I guess. I don't know. I've come to a point where I have to accept I'm the only person that really likes that character.
Yeah, I get why you'd feel that way. If I cared more about that character, that the fact that he is a comic relief and kind of the butt of jokes so much might bother me more. I don't mind this characterization for Killer Croc, and I think part of it maybe is I've gotten really used to it because we keep doing this with that character. And you and I talked off camera about this earlier, but you're absolutely right when you say there is a lot of the Harley Quinn TV show in this. and I liked
and
that
I
show,
was part
and
of
I
my
was
reservations on
and,
things.
and I kind of enjoyed seeing some of that in a more serious context, personally. But I get that not being your bag, and I guess I'm surprised that that's not bothering me. I don't know if my standards are just in the floor these days, because I'm reading this going like, oh, there's like real relationships. And we're allowed to have romance in our superhero comic. Isn't that nice? Things like that. It does go ultra modern in certain ways, and I'm with Connor resisting some of the. I hate to say forced in political stuff with this, but I do think there is some of that. But it's also like surprisingly traditional in certain ways also, and I found that kind of refreshing. So there's just some things here that I've been missing in modern superhero comics that I kind of liked getting back. But Killer Croc is not one of those things.
Yeah, that one specifically, I was like, oh, this is just what Killer Croc would be in that Harley Quinn show. And I
it more
really
or less
like
is
that
what he's
show.
like in that show.
Yeah, he's basically like King Shark.
Yeah.
In that show. Oh, also, I don't know if you guys had this, but Penguin is straight up just an elderly version of Penguin from the Batman cartoon.
He is.
Design-wise.
I was gonna bring that up, and I hate it when we do that, when the mouth wraps all the way around. Like, it works in the Batman in a way it doesn't in anything else.
It was so weird because I was like, he's the only one where I'm like, oh, he's just from like this. Like, that's just this version of that character.
And Austin, you told me off camera you didn't really care for the throwback stuff.
Yeah, so it's not that I didn't really like it. It's more of I find when I read comics, it takes me out a little bit when we do flashbacks and it's like in a very specific style where it's like, oh, here's a flashback, so it's going to be 66 Batman aesthetics. That's nothing against this book. It's just like a personal thing where I find that kind of distracting. But I'm sure a lot of people probably like that. It's just whenever it happens, I go, I don't know. Like I said, it's more of like a personal taste thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
I wouldn't label that as like a big issue with the book. It's just like, yeah.
I can go back and forth on it. I felt like it was way too cutesy in Tom King's Batman much of the time, but I liked it here. And I think I appreciate playing around with like decompressed comic book time, where it's like if the whole history of the DC universe happens in 30 years, then early on it looks like at least in this case, the 60s, and then as you move along, Catwoman keeps changing costumes. I almost wished we only did it with Catwoman. I think it might have actually taken you out a little bit less if we didn't also do it with Batman, because at first I thought the idea was just Catwoman like keeps changing her like her style, like what she feels like doing at any given moment. She's a free spirit. Thematically, this is all about freedom versus security, and how Catwoman and the main thing Catwoman and Batman have in common is that they're true to themselves, and they do what they think is right, or at least what they need for themselves, as opposed to trying to make the rest of the world happy. And that being and in that being visualized as Catwoman has different moods and she's constantly changing outfits because she's just a free spirit. I kind of like that. And then we do it with Batman, and I'm like, I don't know if this Batman looks like Adam West at any point, but okay.
Yeah. Sorry, 66 Batman made me sneeze. I'm sorry.
and also,
for the record, I thought that stuff was awesome. I really like that sequence quite a bit.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And also,
like I said, like it's not. I can't label that as a pro or a con. That's just like a personal thing.
Oh, okay. That was one of the first things you brought up to me, and I thought that kind of soured the book for you?
No, I think it was around when I got to it, so I was like, oh, like I don't
Oh,
know, that's
sure.
kind of weird.
Well, see, I thought you'd finished the book, and then I found out that you were only halfway through, so I was glad I didn't spoil stuff.
Well, and I also said I was halfway through because I didn't want you to be like, oh, you're not very far. I wasn't very far.
I just gotta stop
got
talking to you about
halfway
stuff
through,
before
like,
you're
3
finished.
hours after I told you I was halfway through.
Yeah, I gotta stop talking to you about stuff in the middle of reads. But I found that Riddler panel really amusing, and I sent you that because I thought you'd read it already. But that bit where Edward Nygma goes, yeah, I was, I had that motif. And I was obsessed with riddles, and I was wearing that costume, and I did a lot of coke at that time. That was really funny.
Oh yeah, I mean that explains some things.
No, I like that. But yeah, that's a nice touch. And honestly, the way it handles a lot of its more adult aspects, like I think the way they use adult language, the way they like talk about drugs and stuff, like that is a lot more mature than a lot of other like R-rated comic books, like superhero stuff that I've seen do it. So
yeah, and it's not forced or anything. Like it is what it is.
Yeah, it feels like all these characters grew up and they sadly became part of a more cynical world, and that's also very much what the book is about. With the black and white versus the shades of gray, and the way Harvey Dent perverts that whole idea. I think Two-Face as the villain that is, in charge, and the mayor, and kind of the typical like evil politician, is a real kind of fresh take. Like, I really liked him as the villain of this book, partly because I didn't know if that's where we were going at the beginning. And, like, yeah, maybe ultimately that's kind of the obvious direction to go with it. But I like him as yet a different kind of foil for Batman again. I kind of felt like this was a straight-up Batman book, even though Batman's not in it. Because we're dealing so much with all the thematic ideas that we're often playing with Batman, but with Catwoman as kind of a midpoint between Batman's way of looking at things and Two-Face's way of looking at things. And I don't know, I liked that a lot about it. I gotta say, I thought the first issue of this was spectacular, and then I couldn't stop reading it, and I was flipping pages real fast, and then I slowed down as I continued on. And overall, I'm getting the vibe that I probably liked this book a lot more than you guys did overall. But I was kind of disappointed with the climax, and once it became more of an ensemble cast thing, it didn't lose me like it seemed like it did you guys, but I found myself a little disappointed and a little less taken by it. I kind of wanted to just stick with Catwoman and let her be more of a loner. And so, yeah, Connor, I think I get what you're talking about with world building, with balancing that with the characterization.
Yeah, because I enjoyed the first issue. I like Cliff Chang's characterization of Catwoman. I think what I like about Catwoman's always been a character that's like appealed to me, just aesthetically, but also like I kind of like the sort of idea that she and Batman, that kind of will they won't they kind of soap opera relationship they have. But I also can't point to any Catwoman stories that I think are like great Catwoman stories. And I think that's why I was really excited for this particular comic run. And off the top, I was really impressed with her characterization. I really like her design. Like I like the white stripe in the front of her hair.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm actually getting a silver streak in the front myself, which was, I know. Okay.
You're like, haha, I'm like Catwoman.
I know, yeah. And Cliff Chang Catwoman. So,
Rogue.
Yeah, Rogue. Yeah, I guess Rogue. But what I thought was kind of, and then there's some really cool pieces here. Like let's get into Two-Face, because there's some neat stuff off the top where they say masks are outlawed, and so you sort of see like all these villains that don't have their masks on, but they kind of also say like they never really were hiding, so they can still basically just be villains doing their thing without wearing their masks, and there's no question as to their identity with or without the mask. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And so you have Two-Face where he never wore a mask, half of his face is messed up, right? So, but I think,
and part of him wants to hide and the other part doesn't.
Yes, yeah. But then there's like the part where like the police force wears like these bat masks. So I was a little curious how that factors in with the whole no masks, and that's never really called into question. Especially now that there's like a sort of like deification of Batman as the symbol after he's died, but there's also no masks are allowed. I wish a little bit more was developed there.
No, that ultimately made sense to me, because I think the idea is supposed to be that Two-Face is the ultimate like corrupting politician, where he's able to twist and spin anything. And so the idea is they've based this whole society now on Batman, but it's a complete perversion of Batman. So, like, masks are outlawed with the public, but there's a double standard, and the people on top can do whatever they want to, because it's not really about justice or freedom or anything. It's just about control and order. And look, we fixed the streets, and there's not, and we have ostensibly the safest city in the world now. And so this is obviously working, so we can do this. One of the coolest ideas, I think, is the whole infrastructure, the whole digital infrastructure of Gotham now is run by the Batmobile.
Yeah, that was cool. And
so they've taken Batman as an idea, and even way physically, like his MO, like how he worked, and made and again perverted it, and they're running the city completely opposite to Batman's values and morality. And so, like you said, they deify him while simultaneously doing the opposite of what Batman was all about.
Okay, yeah. I will say, though, I do like the sort of security state that they're in, and I like how that sort of comments on just as a society where we're at, 10-ish years, in the last 10-ish years, right?
Yeah.
Where we all have cell phones, like, right, these tracking computers in our pockets, and they have, like, these wristbands. But Catwoman's been in prison for the last 10 years, so she's kind of off the grid, and that sort of makes her the perfect weapon to go up against this sort of society. And as far as a reluctant hero, what I like about her is that she doesn't really want to fight society. She just wants to get her score. And I think all of that's a great place to start this. But I do think, though, once it becomes an ensemble thing, I don't know. I've never really watched those CW shows, but by the time I got to the end of it, it sort of felt like I was at the end of a pilot for a CW show.
I had that too.
And so... but that being said, I do like some of the characterization here. I like what they do with Riddler quite a bit.
I like Riddler a lot in this. And I like Riddler and Catwoman as a couple. And I didn't expect that to work, but it does. And I didn't expect them to stay together at the end, and they do, and that's wonderful.
So I kind of went off on a little bit there with Two-Face. I just kind of feel like by the time we get through the middle there, he's just being like a bad guy. And there are those scenes where he's all by himself and he's like, I'm just trying to be a good person. And I'm like, Harvey, what do you think a good person is? Because you're being like a really bad dude. And it doesn't, and like, I think what the idea is he thinks what he's doing is right, but what he's doing is pretty bad. But like, I don't understand his thought process for why what he thinks he's doing is good. Cause it's like, firing, like yelling at cops to fire at unarmed protesters and like pretty transparently bad things and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think it's because the Two-Face personality is starting to dominate again. Like he's fighting that more and more as it goes along, and that's why like he loses his cool and he breaks the glass and he takes the coin back out, and then at the end the Two-Face personality finally fully manifests and starts talking in a different voice again and all of that. But yeah, I think the idea is supposed to be that it's it's the compromise that he talks about, right? It's like an incorrect compromise. He's got that speech at the beginning. I thumbed through this again on a second read, and I think it's a lot better on a second read. But he's got the speech at the beginning where he says, like, we kind of played like kids with costumes, and it was just a black and white world, but it's not black and white, and you have to make compromises. And it's kind of the ends justifies the means argument, where we have to do some not great things in order to keep order, and look, it's working. So the police state is valid, and kind of, keeping the regular working class down in certain ways, like we have to. Maybe some of the systemic racism is necessary. That's a part that I didn't really understand how it fit with the rest of it, and felt like we were just trying to find a way to work in like current issues that everybody's talking about into the piece. So that was the bit of it that I wasn't sure where that fit in, but that's in there.
Yeah. Well, going back to that, because like, this is where I feel like the structuring is also a little like awkward with the world building. Even in that first issue, where it's like, we need to like, I like the idea of like, there's just this bar that like henchmen go to. I like that.
Yeah, it's fun.
And we're like that's where Killer Croc's hanging out. And then it's like Harvey was on a show, and then he drives to this henchman bar just to kind of throw his weight around and be the bad guy. And I'm like, the conversation he's having with Catwoman is interesting, but I can see it being like, yeah, why did he come here right now? Did he know she was gonna? I guess he was keeping tabs on her, because like getting her out was kind of part of his whole thing. But I don't know, like it was just kind of like.
But he's also having a hard time finding her. She keeps evading him because
that's the other part.
Because they can't track her because she doesn't have the G card or whatever, and she's not using the money that they use. And all of that.
It's like plot specific. Like, they need to be in a scene together so he can just show up. But then in other scenes,
that's a terrific point. Yeah. You're picking up on some contrivances and plot holes that I did not notice, I guess.
Especially, like, why wouldn't he go to that bar after they kill Killer Croc? Because she's there because they're having like a little funeral for him. That would be like the first place you would look. I would think.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess thematically, like maybe I was taken with this enough that I was not picking up on certain plot issues, because let me read this comment real quick, because Senior Sticks asked, I think, kind of an important thematic question with this book. He says, what are Batman's values other than not killing? And I guess the point I was making is that for Batman, it's virtue ethics before its end-based ethics. So his whole MO is I do what I think is right, rather than trying to create the world that I want to create. And Two-Face is doing the opposite of that. So for Two-Face, it's all about creating order, whatever you have to do in order to do that. And this is the reason that for Batman, the work is never done, because it's about creating a symbol and about changing hearts and minds before it's, force everybody to act like you do, even though there's a part of him that would kind of love to do that, right? Like, obviously super conflicted character. This is the reason that the Kingdom Come Batman kind of goes to that place ultimately. When he loses himself, he becomes a total fascist, and he's basically doing what the Bat Cops are doing in this book. But that's why I like Two-Face so much as the foil for Batman. And then Catwoman in between that. This is maybe the best argument that I've seen, actually, and weirdly, because Batman is dead in this, for Batman and Catwoman as a couple. Like, I understood the connection they have and the way they're the same in this in a way I never have in anything else. That made so much more sense to me after reading this.
Oh, interesting. I think that's one of the things that I couldn't connect with, is because I don't like them as like a more coupley relationship. Like, I like them as she's the femme fatale and they kind of flirt, but she's ultimately a criminal and he is, justice.
See, I like it when it starts that way, but I do like the idea of them like wanting to be together eventually. And I like the kind of melodramatic scenes that they share in the flashbacks. That's what I love about the Batman Catwoman dynamic.
Well, and I like that they never are together. It's not a soulmate situation.
And exactly, and I like that stuff here in this book too.
Like, they are still two at odds, but what makes them the same is, again, that they're true to themselves before they're about a larger agenda that would compromise them as people. Like, what makes them the same is their stubbornness.
Well, I guess what I mean is, like, I prefer Catwoman as a Batman villain as opposed to what she is now in, like, modern day, where she's more of, like, a part of the Bat family. So, like, when you're starting...
Well, and this straddles that line super well, I thought.
No, definitely, but it also still is on that Bat family side, at least from, like, a basic premise, like, where we start. So, like, I think that was also part of why
But what do you expect her to do in a situation where the whole world is falling apart? She's not just going to go steal jewels.
No, for sure, but I don't care about modern Catwoman. So that's what I'm saying, is that I think that's part of what I couldn't latch onto, is that it's a character that I don't really like.
Can I fight you on this for a second?
I mean, go ahead.
Because it's not just modern Catwoman. We've taken it a lot farther than we ever did before.
Back a few decades,
but even in the '60s show, there was always, or at least after her first appearance, there's not just the sense that the two of them like each other and would maybe like to get together, but also she won't go as far as the other villains do, and there are places where they would team up or nearly team up. Like, this is an idea that goes back quite a ways.
No, and I like a version of Catwoman that, like, won't kill, for example. Like, she has, like, certain values that, like you said, other villains don't. But I think we just pushed that too far, is my thing. But it's, whatever.
Yeah.
I do
that.
like...
It's been a long time since I've seen a Catwoman that was just a straight up villain. It would be kind of nice to see that again. I'm not expecting that with this.
That's what happened basically to...
Sorry, go ahead, Connor. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, basically, we just, like, took Talia al Ghul on the Morrison run, and now she's basically just the vicious Catwoman from, like, the Golden Age or something. Silver Age, I don't know. But, yeah, it's kind of interesting how her characters just sort of evolved into something else. But I'm cool with it.
Yeah, no, because that was something I really liked with the Reeves movie, is that, like, yes, they do have that kind of flirtation thing, but there's also a section of that movie where she's just straight up the villain.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's nice to have a modern Batman thing that remembers that she started as a Batman villain.
I want to go back to what you're saying, Cap, because you're right. Like, the idea of, like, what Batman and Gotham City, like, are, like, kind of entrenched, like, they're together, right? Like, Batman is sort of the soul, and even after he's gone, like 10 years gone, like, they talk about, the classic Bruce Wayne could solve all of Gotham's problems with his wealth or whatever, and in a lot of ways he has done that, but also Two-Face has taken advantage of his tech and he's like, they're kind of running out of time with his tech, which is why they're trying to get into the Batcave as well. But I do kind of like how, like, the soul of Gotham is sort of like people fighting over what Batman left behind. Yeah. And that's, I think that you're right. Like, that does kind of have the shadow of Batman is still looming large over Gotham, which is a cool world to take place in.
That was the thought, actually, I had while reading it that I really liked, was that when it first started, I thought it was the Rises thing, where, like, at the beginning of Dark Knight Rises, it was like, oh, Harvey Dent died. He was this big symbol. So we legalized crime, and now crime's gone. But this, it was like, Batman died, he became the symbol. And now we, like, perverted that, and it's like a totalitarian thing that Two-Face is doing, where you have, like, these bat cops in the street. And, like, that's kind of why... a lot of the crimes died down, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's actually an argument for why maybe Batman, especially, as conflicted and maybe fragile in some ways as his as he is, it might not be a good idea for him to just take his power, like monetary power, and throw it at problems, because that kind of power can corrupt you, And Austin, this was a thing that we meant to talk about with Imposter, and we didn't get to somehow, even though we talked about that for an hour and a half. Because you told me off camera with that you didn't like the way that it was trying to maybe answer the modern criticism. Hey, why doesn't Batman just solve all these problems with his money? And Connor, I don't know if you've read that, but at the end of that book, Bruce Wayne actually comes out and has in explanation for it, which is this is a younger Bruce Wayne, and this book informed the Batman movie a lot, or at least the guy who wrote it.
I'd say the other way
was working on that, but it had similar sensibilities where he goes, well. My parents had it set up where I don't get all my wealth right away, and he like only over a few years he gets $1 million, but he's pouring all the money he has into Batman, and he doesn't have anything left over. So he's living in the manor, but it's basically like in squalor, and he's not like every penny goes into the Batsuit and the car and all of that.
That's awesome. That's a really good explanation.
But Austin didn't like that about it.
Really?
So what I didn't like about it was that because I think that criticism's dumb, but
I also don't like that criticism. But if you want to get around it, that is a cool way to address it.
Yeah,
I think it was more so just I didn't like that they had to like throw in an "in" for it. But I don't know. I think on retrospective, as I've lived with that book, I don't mind it because I think while reading it in the moment, I was more so thinking that the book was on one side when I think ultimately it's not.
That's what I thought. And I don't mean to just go back and review that again, but the reason I'm bringing it up here is to say I thought for a second that's what this was doing, and it's making the opposite argument. It's saying Batman really can't just solve everything with his wealth and be true to the point of why he's doing what he's doing. It's not just like create a culture of control and make it like Batman wants to do everything he can to make sure that no kid goes through what he did, but I think there's a recognition, at least with a lot of versions of Batman, that again you've got to do that through changing hearts and minds, and not just like try to force people into it, because then they won't learn anything.
Yeah, and also it's like when people say, "Oh, all Batman has to do is throw money at it, and the problems will go away." It's like, okay. But he's not one of the politicians that's handling the money. Like,
well, yeah, that's what the Batman movie like answers that, where it's like, here's all the money.
Like throwing money at social social projects and whatever the word I'm looking for is. You know what I'm saying. Like he's not like. Like there are other people that have to handle the money. And, like,
the point of Gotham is that Gotham's too far gone. Like,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's why he has to dress up like a bat and punch people, because like everybody at the top is corrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is what we're dancing around. The question is, can you be a part of this system and enact any positive change? And I think this book is really nuanced about that part of it, and is pretty mature about it, where it says like yes and no. If you are as extreme a personality as Two-Face or Batman, probably not. I mean, I think Bruce Wayne shouldn't be a politician for this very same reason that he shouldn't use guns.
Yeah.
Which is, if Barbara Gordon shoots a person, she's going to be able to sleep at night, and it's not going to fundamentally change her as a human being. If Batman shoots a person, it might turn him into the Joker. That's all, or at least that's always his fear, right? Like, maybe he goes too far in his own mind with that, but that's the whole reason he doesn't use guns. If Two-Face... if Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face and then he goes back into politics, this happens. But Barbara Gordon can go into politics and potentially, from the inside out, actually start to change things and not become corrupt herself. It takes the right person. And I like that at the beginning, she like some of the things that that has happened because Harvey Dent's been mayor, but doesn't at all like his motives and putting bat cops on the street and all of that. And so she's like somewhere in between Batman and Harvey Dent at that point.
I didn't have this while reading it, but I'm looking at that. Wait, go back to the page you're on.
Oh, sorry.
That's what I'm looking at, and I'm just staring at this image while you were talking.
Yeah.
I had a dawning realization that that's just the shot in Dark Knight Returns with the Batmobile looking down on the mutant leader, right? But it's perverted.
Yep. I had that while I was reading it.
I didn't catch that until just staring at it right now.
Well, and there's
Sorry, I had to get that out.
There's a ton of Dark Knight Returns in this, and
Absolutely.
maybe it's a little too derivative. I can't decide, but. And like you said, Austin, like it's Old Man Logan, it's Ninja Turtles Ronin. I mean, like we do this.
There's a little bit of Spider-Man Rain in this, and when I got to that, I was like, "What?" That's crazy. Not a ton, but the Two-Face stuff early on reminded me of that because in Spider-Man Rain, Venom's the mayor, and he uses the web that's like this big thing that like covers the city to protect it. And I was like, oh, and then in this you have Two-Face as the mayor, and he's like using that.
See, I've never read that. That's what Rain does? Rain makes Venom the mayor?
Yeah. Well, not only have you read it, but you've made a review of it.
Did I review that? I don't remember that. I don't remember Venom being the mayor.
Request.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
Dude, I review too much stuff.
Yeah, that was my second request.
And you're the one that requested it. All right, well, sorry, Austin, I forgot.
The mayor, and he keeps Wilson Fisk in his house, and he eats steaks in front of him.
None of this is coming to me right now.
Wilson Fisk is like anorexic from not being allowed to eat.
Oh my god, that's
just,
amazing.
Like, walks up to him and he eats steaks in front of him. It's really funny.
God, was it like 3 in the morning when I reviewed that book? I don't remember any of this.
Possibly, yeah. That book's insane.
That's hilarious.
I read it when I was like 10, and it's crazy.
I like how you told the one person in the world who would know that you reviewed that you did not review that, or you've not read it yet. That's funny.
God, my apologies, Austin. I can't believe that.
I don't care.
But I was gonna.
That's just funny.
But I was gonna say immediately, and I'm sure we all had this. I'm picking up on the Dark Knight Returns of it all, and then I think one of the things that engaged me about this right away, because like I said, the first issue I was enamored with, and I think one of the things that really perked me up real quick was it's not Mayor Harvey Dent, it's Mayor. I mean, it's not. It is Harvey Dent. He's not really Two-Face anymore, but he looks like Two-Face, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like we never do that, because Dark Knight Returns is a Harvey Dent who has had facial reconstruction and he looks like Harvey Dent again, and I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, so like he's ostensibly put himself back together and he's a good person again, but he still looks like Two-Face, and so like the duality of that is always on his face, and you're always questioning whether he's really turned around, and that's kind of interesting. And I don't know,
talking about like phase 2 of his plan, and like there's that part where he's at the press conference and he's like, "You guys know I love twos."
That's really funny.
Yeah,
so yeah, it's just really creative right away, with the way that it creates its future.
Yeah, absolutely. And Poison Ivy runs Starbucks, apparently. That's a thing.
Yeah, some of the choices with Poison Ivy I thought were a little bit counterintuitive and odd.
Yeah. I thought she was kind of bizarre on a design way, because she's the only villain that's like overweight now, and if there's any villain I would imagine wouldn't be overweight, it's Poison Ivy. But I don't know. I thought that was a little strange.
Yeah, I just didn't see any rhyme or reason to that. And I kept trying to read something into it, and I don't know what we were doing with that. It seemed like we just needed a token, slightly more overweight character because everybody's gotten older, so they put on some pounds.
It should have been Riddler, because he's like an old loser.
Yeah, but then you're not gonna buy Catwoman getting together with him at the end.
Yeah.
I'll defend Poison Ivy a little bit on the design level, in the sense that, like, I didn't think she was that overweight. And it looks more like, if we're going to, like, what's the term? What's sort of what's it called? Orpheus. What do we call on Orpheus, which is like Greek mythology, right?
Yes.
And like in Greek mythology, like beauty was seen as more voluptuous and whatnot, and she, is not as like slender as like what we would typically think of like Poison Ivy being. But
that's fair. But I'll argue with you a little bit and say none of the other designs for these characters feel like a new like twist or spin on the character in the first place. They all feel like they've grown into it in their middle-aged or getting older in their 50s or whatever. So if you're suggesting that she's always looked like this, I kind of need a flashback with that or something somewhere.
No, that's true. No, yeah, and or maybe like this is just like a look that she's grown into, and if she is going to grow into weight, she's definitely grown into her weight more gracefully than say Killer Croc has.
Yeah, but she's a plant lady. Why?
That was my thing. I was like, she's like she's the fully organic one. It's not like she's eating like Doritos.
You know what?
I just don't understand how it happens to her, unless she was always like that.
Good point. you guys are right. I will back down on that. That's good.
So
the smoking Dorito got me.
So
I can't respond to that.
So I'm reading this book and intrigued by the mystery and going, okay, you're gonna have to really kind of blow my mind with what Orpheus is, with how long I'm waiting to get to the Batcave and find out. One of the things that's fun about this is all of the artifacts that we try to use to get into the Batcave and they're not working out. Because right away, in what is it, the second issue, when you've got the original Green Lantern ring and we're gonna try to use that to break into the Batcave, and I'm like, oh, that seems like kind of easy and contrived. We just got to come up with some kind of an artifact, and then like it doesn't work because they don't have the lantern. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So like they got hurdles in their way, and they're trying to do this heist, but they don't have the right material, and so they have to go find other things. So then they get the Dr. Fate helmet, and now they're going to use that instead of the Green Lantern ring. That's really fun. And then, and I like how we're incorporating a lot of different parts of the DC universe while it still is a Batman story, and we're not bringing in like everybody and his dog into the story. Like you don't wonder where any of those characters are. You just have their artifacts, and like there's a good Superman reference, and that's why there's magic in the Batcave, because Superman hates magic, and he got in once, so that was kind of fun. And then when we finally get into the Batcave at the end. And it's it's sort of bookended, because for a while we almost lose the Batcave part of it because we're just trying to figure out how to find a thing to get in there. And so then you get to the last issue and we're finally going to get inside and we find out what Orpheus is. And I was a little bit let down by that reveal. It was like, okay, so it's a Lazarus pit that's mixed with venom toxin. And the negative side effects of those two things cancel each other out because we blended them. Okay, and so now, instead of going into the pit and becoming a crazy person but living longer, you are yourself normally, but the trade-off is you only get to live like a week. And Batman's whole thing,
like super strong,
and you're super strong. And Batman's whole thing with telling Catwoman about Orpheus was that if he was going to die, he wanted to make sure he had a chance to, like Jesus Christ, get resurrected for a few days, and then just so that he can keep doing what he was doing before he died for a while longer. And that's like the whole mystery.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I expected
like it's okay, but Connor, I don't think the book's too long. I think it's too long if that's your reveal.
That's a good.
I just waited too long to get to that, and then I was a little bit let down by it.
Well, so the other thing about it is like this is kind of like a kind of double-edged sword for me. if you're making a Catwoman book, I appreciate how many heists there are in
Yeah.
this thing. There's like
Mhm.
at least 2 per issue. Like it's a lot of heisting, which is cool. But I also think that, but like you said, once you get to the last thing, like that's really it. And I think like on some level, Catwoman's also like that's it. But for her, the that's it is. I thought it was more of this thing of it was for me, but it wasn't. It was for his fight to continue. And
Because at
what
the
we
end of the
kind
day, he's always going to have to put that ahead of her.
Mhm. And it's interesting how by the end she's kind of in that exact same position where she's gotten over the dream of being with Batman, and whatever dream, it's represented by the Batcave. It's just this thing collecting dust that she's trying to get to, and then she has to basically destroy it. And now she's just going to keep being Catwoman.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting way to like reflect on Batman. But I don't think this is a problem. It's interesting that she almost doesn't even recognize that she is following in Batman's footsteps that way.
And the way that she is inspiring people on the streets,
Mm-hmm.
where like she doesn't want to be that symbol. Like she's become. This is interesting. She's basically become a symbol of anarchy in the same way Batman became a symbol of order.
She becomes
Mhm.
movie Joker.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and movie Joker
All
is
the cats
here.
running
I
around.
think it's also really important that Joker in the flashbacks is wearing a police outfit.
Yes. Yeah.
And
the
is
flashback was like totally pulled from the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. There's a lot of that in that.
oh, that's a
flashback.
good point. And he's talking about and of course his philosophy is the Heath Ledger Joker, because he's talking about how like order and civilization is a joke, and I think the idea is supposed to be that for the Joker what Batman is working toward is impossible, because if you create that kind of order, it's just going to fall apart, because it's or even worse, work out, but nobody actually has any freedom, and so what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like that it's not just a random Joker plot with like random Joker ramblings. Like it's thematically related to everything the book is about.
Yeah, no, that's true. He also tells everyone to put on a happy face, and they all wear the masks from Joker, which that was a interesting reference to the 2019 film. But no, you're right about.
Well, and it's also a reference to '89, because that line is in '89.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah. So put on a happy face.
Well,
You know
and you
what?
got the
That's probably-
Joker balloon at the start of the flashback
Oh my
too.
god.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a mix of. I hope he stays frozen that way, Connor or Austin. I really do.
I
Oh
did
no,
too.
he's back.
He was giving himself bat ears.
For a minute you were just like this, and I was hoping you'd just stay like that.
I'm such a fraud. I need to brush up on my Batman '89.
Connor was like, "What? There's balloons in '89?"
No, it's with what little Joker we have in this. It is a blend of the 3 live-action movie Jokers that anybody would care to reference.
Well, of course, you gotta do movie Jokers. It's Black Label.
Because of course we don't have the Suicide Squad Joker in here. There's no point in doing that.
Hey, you want to talk
should've said
about wearing the
Mark
police
Haifa.
uniform?
There you go. You should have had the goat head priest from like this haircut.
I love how on the wiki there's a whole like backstory to the goat head priest where it's an actual goat's head, and it's like, really, come on.
I love that's like the only scene that we've seen from his cut is just those criminals running around, and then that goat guy makes a goat noise when he dies.
I didn't know about that.
Anyway.
The one thing I did enjoy with the climax was the kind of poetic irony of the giant coin being the thing that blocks off the Orpheus pit.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's cool.
That bit's kind of fun. But other than that, I wasn't real impressed with the ending of this.
Well,
No,
with with the Orpheus thing, when we like the entire book, I was like, oh well, obviously the twist is gonna be like it's nothing. Like it was always in you, Catwoman. So I was kind of surprised that we had like an actual twist, but I also thought it was funny that ultimately it was Batman saying, "Hey, please bring me back to life."
um,
And like I get the sensibility
No,
that
of course.
like Batman's gonna do everything he can to like keep the fight going for as long as he has breath or can have breath, even though he knows that it's not, he's not going to create necessarily any lasting change, because again it's just about, in his mind, doing the right thing, or is it the vengeance thing, and he can't get over his parents' death, and he just can't help himself. That's always the question.
Well, and it was weird for me too,
Yeah.
because I started reading Suicide Squad Blaze, the Black Label book, and then put it down to read this, and then continued reading after I finished. And that's the premise of that book, is that Waller has this chemical that she puts in you, and it makes you like super strong and whatnot, but you also die after a certain amount of time.
Oh,
And I thought that
interesting.
was kind of weird that I was like, read this in between that, and it had that uh, kind of thing going.
And they're both Black Label books.
And they're both Black Label books, yeah. And I
Wow.
think they're both from the same year.
This took forever to get finished. Like that.
Did it?
Yeah. I think like the third issue came out in March of 20. My back.
Yep.
Oh,
You're back.
Okay. It says like it came out in March of 22, and then it says that the last issue is going to come out in August, but it didn't come out until October of 22. So this thing finished in like the last 6 months. Like it took forever for that last issue to come out.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think Blaze is 2021, because I think they released it around the same time as the movie, or at least started or finished. I don't know. It's clearly like a tie-in for that.
Okay. Yeah, so the ending, I got issues with it. So just going back to like the structure, you have this like Killer Croc character who is both the heavy and the comic relief, and then we take him off the table, so we need to get a new comic relief in Poison Ivy, and then we also need to get a new heavy in Etrigan the Demon. And all Etrigan really does is like lift something up, and then they realize they kind of wrote him into a hole. They realize, oh, Poison Ivy can just lift up the thing too. So then Etrigan has really nothing to do until like Two-Face and company shows up, and then they say, well, we got to Clarion the Witch Boy. And then they say, all right, well, we don't know how to write ourselves out of this corner, so we're just going to go away.
Yeah, I was like, what's happening right now?
Yeah, and then like they're like, okay, shoot the fear gas, and I got a Mr. Freeze gun, and I'm like, this just feels like, especially when Clarion showed up, I felt like I was just like looking at someone with action figures. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
And then like you have
we just
like,
happened to bring this guy along because we knew Etrigan was going to be. Yeah.
He's got a little cat with him who turns into like a Thundar, and then like a Thundercat, and then it's like, he says something along the lines of, oh yeah, remember the whole mole that you had in your operation that we kind of forgot about, that whole subplot? It was actually Killer Croc. And she's like, doggone it, not Croc. I can't be too mad at him because he's dead.
Oh, I missed that. So there was a mole the whole time?
Yeah, he says something like, oh, that Croc is one chatty fella. And she's like, Croc, no, in her monologue. And I was like, what?
He said that was, he was just like, oh, doesn't it suck that Croc died? He talked a lot, right? Like,
yeah, I thought that's all that was about. Are you sure, Connor?
I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong.
That makes a ton of sense.
Well, here's the thing.
It was like, yeah, he talks.
It doesn't though, because Riddler's explanation for why it's paranoid for Catwoman to suspect him, because the idea is she has Riddler and his daughter, whose name is also Eddie or Edie. Maybe it's Edie.
I love that. that.
Yeah, no, that's fun.
That's very Riddler. Yeah.
Yes.
So she says, I want you off this the scheme, but I'm gonna pay you what I was gonna pay you. And at first she says it's because it's too dangerous, but then he gets her to admit that she doesn't trust them because she thinks that maybe Eddie called the cops on them. But Eddie's like, well, look, Harvey was doing a speech like 2 blocks away, so there were already cops there. So why did they need a mole then?
Well, and I just realized that the second time that
Well,
the
I guess they
cops
wouldn't
show
necessarily
up,
know that there were gonna be that they were gonna be right there. I'm not sure, but I just thought Riddler's explanation made sense, and so I never thought there needed to be a payoff to that after that, because I thought it really was just paranoia.
That's true, but also like when they're in the sewers, they are waiting for them to get there, and I'm wondering how they knew to wait for them below the sewer.
when I realized, because you have that, like they're waiting for them in the
Well,
sewer.
maybe that's
but
supposed to
then-
be the clue, because Croc, used to live in the sewers, and if he's the mole.
But then also the second time it happens after that is when Catwoman realizes that there has to be a mole, is after Croc dies. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. But then that's also like Eddie saying, "Hey, I think you might just be getting paranoid. He was 2 blocks away." That was the second time.
Yeah, no, that's fair too. So.
I think this might be one of those rare books that where when you start talking it out enough, you realize that there's some sloppy storytelling going on here. But I felt like it had a pretty good commanded narrative while I was reading it.
Although if Croc was the mole, he probably wouldn't ask to be killed before the cops can get him.
That's true.
Yeah, like why did he sacrifice himself if he was the mole?
No, that's a good point. Yeah, no, I
don't
know.
understand that if that's true.
Yeah, and I mean, I could be wrong, but it is like he says, "Oh, bummer about Croc. He sure was a chatty one." And I don't know. I've seen enough film noirs to know that when someone talks about being chatty, they're talking about being a mole or a snitch or something.
Don't take this the wrong way. I hope you're wrong about that.
Oh, yeah. I hope I'm wrong too.
I assumed it was just because Killer Croc just walks around rambling about how he has to pee and stuff. Like that's just his character.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Yeah, that comes back 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Well, and the Arkham voice is the voice for Killer Croc in my head, so it was that voice saying I have to pee, and that was weird.
I do think that
it's kind of like a Ninja Turtle on this.
He does, yeah.
Or at least, a Ninja Turtle mutate, like maybe not a turtle, but he looks like he fits in that universe. Like he could be one of the mutanimals.
This Killer Croc could totally be in Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles with his tracksuit.
So like I said,
I'm sorry, Cap. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. Oh, hey, I have a couple questions for you guys in case you picked up on things that I didn't. Because like I said, I thumbed through this a second time, but I didn't get like a full-on second read. What was the deal with the red tree at Arkham? I don't understand that symbol or what the point was of it, because there was a point made of like that tree didn't used to be there, but now it's there, and then toward the end we have this big shot of it like it matters, and I don't know what we're doing with the tree.
I think it's supposed to be just like Ivy at the end, because isn't the one at the end at Wayne Manor? Like it's supposed to be like that. The tree sprouted where she died.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, I didn't understand that. Okay, thank you. I knew it was probably obvious, and I just somehow missed it.
Yeah, I think initially it is just Ivy quickly sprouted up a tree so that we could have like a thing to get our foot in the door at Arkham, and now it's like it's red because Ivy.
Because I got that the cops that were the fake cops were tree people, but I didn't understand what that had to do with the tree that was in the yard.
Yeah, no, I think like Connor said, it's just they're coming in to take care of the tree, and then at the end it's like the phoenix in the water in X2. It's just...
Okay, thank you for explaining that to me. I feel dumb. And then the other thing that I got to ask you about is what was the deal with? Like, did I read this wrong? There's a line, and I think it's on this page or right around here, right toward the end. There's something about now that Harvey is gone and being put back in Arkham, there's something about Barbara Gordon like taking his place on the ballot, but she was running against him.
No,
So
it's the
I don't understand that.
it's like the other person that takes Harvey's place, like when he's gone. He says that his name's on the ballot now.
Oh, is that what it is? I thought it was her talking. Yeah. Okay.
No, it was whatever Harvey's replacement was.
Leland Couch. I remember that for some reason.
Weird. And then, of course, we know she's gonna win. There's not even any drama made of is she gonna win, and she won.
Yeah, it's the panel right before that one of Barbara celebrating.
I think it's fun that she's the mayor by the end of this because it's kind of doing the Batman Beyond thing, but without going straight up and making her commissioner.
Yeah.
Although, how is she crippled? I want to know that because she's still Batgirl when Joker was killed. So I want to know that.
Oh man, I didn't even think of that.
Because she's still Batgirl, yeah, when both Batman and Joker.
Because that is definitely Barbara Gordon Batgirl. Yeah, one thing
that's like an issue, but I'd like to know that.
No, but you're right. It's not Killing Joke. Something else put her in a wheelchair.
Something else happened.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, good point.
Where's that world building, sir?
I will say, I'm glad that they remember, Jim Gordon's famous words: "We are stronger when we are kind to each other, and unbeatable when we stand up for each other." That's my favorite Gordon quote.
Gordon's famous quote, if everybody love each other, the world will be a better place.
Yeah, he was a real substantive speechwriter, that Gordon.
That's why he was a cop and not a politician.
That's what I was going to say. There's a reason he didn't run for anything beyond chief of police or whatever.
So can we get into the kind of the political angle on this? Because that's one where I feel like it's a little undercooked, where I kind of understand Catwoman as like this reluctant symbol where she's like, hey, I don't really stand for anything. I just want to find out whatever this Orpheus thing is, and I was just at the right place at the wrong time, basically, or wrong place at the right time, and now people think of me as like this symbol.
Yeah, because ultimately she does stand for something, and she comes right out and spells it out when in like the second issue where she just says freedom, and like that's all you need to know. Like that's all. It's very simple. She just wants to be allowed to do whatever she wants to do.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, I feel like if you're just a person on the street and you see like people trying to like take out this cat burglar and then she just disappears, I don't understand how that would motivate this particular movement to protest. And I don't get why they're all wearing, the Shrek masks from Batman Returns. That felt a little like,
oh, that's true. That is what those are. I didn't think of that.
Who needs to brush up on the Burton Batman now,
yeah,
Cap?
Exactly, Cap. Even I had that.
No, I wasn't thinking about that. No, you're right. It's the spinning cat head at the top of Shrek's. Yeah. Wow.
But I feel like, them trying to do like a sort of, social unrest thing makes sense. But I feel like it almost felt like it came across as like an editor's note of like, could you try tying in Catwoman as a symbol to this kind of disparate political element? And so them kind of haphazardly saying she's a symbol for them now, that felt a little clunky in terms of how it was bringing those elements together. I don't know how you guys felt about that.
Yeah, because isn't the movement about saving the theater or something like that?
Yeah, it's about like gentrification and like, yeah. It's like, so we're not knocking it down to build a stadium.
We don't just need another sports stadium.
Yeah.
It's part of phase 2.
Yeah, remind me.
It's the Thor the Dark World of the phase 2.
Yeah, remind me what.
That's why it destroyed cinema.
Remind me what happens like publicly at the beginning with Catwoman that even spurns them on as a movement. Because again, thematically, I liked it, but I mean that's a good point.
Oh, it's her breaking into Star Labs, which is really weird. So the guy who made this clearly loves Ostrander, because she breaks into Star Labs, and their bodyguards there, like their security, are Checkmate and Red Rocket, who are like a Russian superhero team that fight the Suicide Squad a lot. And I don't really know what either of those two are doing there, but I was like, that's kind of cool. I didn't expect them to show up in this.
Hey, I also didn't know what the woman that ran the bar had to do with Red Tornado.
For like half a page, I thought she was supposed to be Granny Goodness.
I did too.
Oh, weird. But I read that back over a couple of times and I couldn't figure it out because it's like, oh, you don't want to mess with the Red Tornado. I was like, what does this woman have to do with Red Tornado?
Was she a Red Tornado at one point? That's what my assumption was, but I could be wrong. I don't know anything.
Maybe that was
Red
just
Tornado.
like a cute nickname they gave her, but you can't do that kind of
Were
thing.
you a Red Tornado?
But you can't do that in a book where you also have a Green Lantern ring and a Dr. Fate helmet. Like if it was a nickname somebody gave her, maybe I think that's what it's supposed to be. Where it's just like everybody calls her the Red Tornado, and it's like a cute reference. You can't do that in this book. You're hip deep in the DC universe. That doesn't work.
Isn't it wild how much stuff just happens in Gotham? Like this is touching on what you were talking about earlier, but it's like I really like that we go to Zatanna for like a page,
6 seconds.
Where they're like. For 6 seconds. I like that. But it's like Zatanna and Etrigan and like Jason Blood, like and yeah, Jason Blood, isn't he like a Gotham guy? Like that's like a thing about him. And it's like just kind of crazy that like all that magic and crime and stuff, like it all is in Gotham, and it's kind of cool that we touch on all of it. But
I like that Zatanna is working in Vegas, like Elvis, in a Booster Gold building.
Oh, I missed that.
Well, it just says like gold on top, and it's got like the little star on it. So I was like, oh, that must be Booster Gold. I don't know.
But
I like how they break her enchantment, and she's just like, whoa, something happened.
Yeah.
Anyways, going back.
Yeah, it's just like a little cutaway for 5 panels. Oh man, I had too many shots to drink. Anyways, cutaway. Did Paul Dini write that section? What was happening?
Hey, maybe they do talk about how Catwoman's got a thing for redheads, so Paul Dini could have been involved.
Well, I don't want to be crass or anything, but Paul Dini would have insisted that she wasn't drawn to look as much older as she does. that would not have happened. Don't you think Barbara does not look as old as she's supposed to be, and Harvey Dent has not aged at all? Like at all.
Did you guys like? There's a few panels where he does look like Tommy Lee Jones. Did you guys? Okay, cool. We're definitely going to like actor references for faces occasionally, but not always. Like there's a scene where Batman and Catwoman kiss, and it's Adam West's jaw clearly, but not when he's in that costume. I'm not showing it right now because I don't want to flip all over the place, but just trust me on that. That happens. Anyway, but I want to explore your point real quick before we finish up here, Connor, about like whether we buy that movement would actually happen based around Catwoman. Like I bought it in the moment. Okay.
But like I said, now just as we're talking, I'm forgetting what exactly they publicly saw her do.
It's when she's on top of the theater and like all the like Star Labs like security bots are like saying, "All right, drop it or we're gonna kill you," basically.
Yeah.
And then she uses it to like basically like teleport away. Mm-hmm. And they saw that, and I'm thinking like, I don't see how that is like this symbol of freedom that they can use to like protest with.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Especially when people think she killed Batman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or like blame her for getting him blown up. Right?
Right.
When the public perception seems to just be, oh, that Catwoman, she's back to stealing things.
Well, and I could honestly like it where, what if like over the last 10 years, the public has honestly just been like, man, like the way the Batman iconography has been like, changed. we don't like Batman anymore. So like Catwoman is like the thing that killed Batman. Let's take that on. Like,
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but it's not framed that way.
I also just had a thought too. So playing
Yeah,
into the
I just
no
real
mat.
quick, I just like the general idea, I guess, of her being the like uh the symbol of being the opposite of the system, and especially the way Batman's been like misappropriated or whatever. But you're right. Like I didn't think about that. I'm sorry, Austin. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like with the no masks thing, because I think it makes sense that, like the cops have masks, and it's like a double, I almost double entendre, uh, double standard on that. Um, but why do the like Checkmate people and Red Rocket people for Star Labs have masks? Like they're not connected to anything.
Oh,
Like that's kind of weird. They're allowed to have masks because reference, I guess.
I
don't
don't
know.
think. I think you guys are on a little bit too much about the idea of masks versus just being vigilantes. I don't think it's so much about masks as it is just people aren't allowed
No,
to go take the
definitely
law
isn't.
into their own hands. Like
They talk about how you can't trick or treat, like you can't take your kids trick or treating because they can't wear masks.
I didn't think that had anything to do with masks. I thought it was because of like. Well, I thought it was the curfew thing, but I guess the curfew thing doesn't come until later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point. But but this is one of the only things I've read where simultaneously superheroes are outlawed, and I still buy some kids and like collectors and stuff having superhero stuff. Like usually that doesn't work, but it kind of does okay with this because it's only Gotham, it's not the whole world, and because they're simultaneously outlawing superheroes and like worshiping Batman. So you would have some glorification of superheroes even though you can't have superheroes. It's kind of weird that it actually worked.
Cap, I want to hear you talk about Riddler in this because I know you are probably the #1 Riddler fan I know, and I want to hear you talk about him in this.
I just really liked how down to earth he is. Like the idea that as extreme and over the top as Riddler is, there's and also again I just like how this plays thematically. Eventually, a lot of these characters just grow up and it's not so much about the like the thrill of the chase anymore, and they kind of find their adulthood somewhere, and Riddler just goes and like he still kind of has the anal retentive riddle obsession, but he's able to temper it now, and he can just be a regular guy. And I don't know. I just like that the idea of a mellowed out Riddler, which I've not seen a lot. Like usually when we have villains that try to turn over a new leaf in Batman things, they're so psychotic that like they try for a minute and their nature wins out ultimately. And I thought it was kind of refreshing that some of them do that and some of them don't. And somewhat ironically, it's who you would think of as the least psychotic characters that I cannot go against their nature with Batman and Catwoman. Everybody else does, besides Joker, who dies. But like Poison Ivy, it kind of turns over a new leaf, and Penguin in a weird way does, because we're told at the beginning almost everything he does now is legal.
Yeah,
and the Riddler just becomes like a family man.
I like that his daughter is probably still a little bit of a byproduct of his narcissism.
Yeah.
Because it's just, her name is his name minus one of the D's. And that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
I like that.
No, he's still...
That's the best thing about Riddler.
He's still himself.
Really funny.
He still has, like you said, that kind of self-absorption. And I don't know why I buy him with Catwoman, but I totally did. And I like the idea that he like overly complicates everything.
Well, he also wanted to kind of like, he always fancied his brain the ultimate foil for Batman's. And so like maybe that's what, they're responding to, is once he kind of mellows out, like his brain does operate more like Batman's did than any of the other villains. And yeah, I don't know, that I also wasn't really expecting them to give Selena a love interest unless they were going to dig up Slam Bradley, who's probably like 80, which I don't think they would do. Um, but then you do have um, like that scene where they're just like catching up with drinks, and like I was won over by that, and I was kind of wanting to see them get together. And I was kind of thinking that he was the mole, and then when he didn't turn out to be the mole, I was like, oh, well, cool. I'm kind of glad they're together. So yeah, and I like the Riddler a lot in this.
Can he have a private detective agency book now?
Yes.
I thought that was just going to be a one-night stand too. Like I was surprised that continued. But I'm sorry, Ozzy, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I guess I'll be the dissenting one, and I didn't really get their relationship, but I just didn't know where it came from. I was like, I don't know if I buy these two ending up together.
Well, and I'm freely admitting that I don't have a good like read on it, thematically or anything. I just liked the relationship. I'm having a hard time explaining why.
Well, I think Connor probably called it with the Batman thing, with how he thinks. But
I also think that Chiang is able to find just a chemistry just in dialogue with the two that I found appealing. So
no, that's fair. No, I liked them. I liked them like together, but I wasn't really sure about them as a relationship. I don't know.
Do you mean like just what she's seeing in him in the first place, or?
Yeah, like I didn't really get where that came from, what she would see in Riddler. I don't know. But it's probably what Connor said about, like, she probably sees that element of Batman in him, I guess.
Well, and his daughter is kind of being primed to be like a second Catwoman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Connor, something I didn't think about at all, and I don't know if this is intended until something you said a minute or two ago. I had kind of this epiphany, and I think maybe there's an idea here that we always talk about, Batman, like the world of Gotham revolves around Batman, and without him, maybe some of these criminals wouldn't become the extreme personalities they do and become psychotic. So what happens when he dies? Like, do some of them just eventually kind of mellow out and lose their insanity because they don't have Batman there to like keep the escalation going and keep like poking at him with a stick? Like, I guess part of the reason Riddler mellows out is because he doesn't have that challenge anymore. So how many other villains don't even belong in Arkham anymore because there's no Batman, and they just become like, I don't know if this makes sense psychologically, but like they kind of lose the psychosis.
Maybe Hugo Strange. Well, Joker's dead, so we don't know about him. But no, I think the case for Riddler honestly probably makes it. Like, he is so hyper focused on Batman.
Mm-hmm. Oh, a funny thing with Riddler, I don't know if you guys had this in the moment, but it's so weird that Batman's one entrance to the Batcave is like the craziest, like, like most ridiculous security you can go through. And the other exit is just like, you just turn the thing on the clock and it opens. It's like, really?
That's true.
I thought that was really amusing when Riddler shows up and he's like, yeah, I just went through the front door. Like,
well, might be.
It turns out you just put this thing on the clock, you should walk right in.
Well, my beef with that was, you're telling me that Riddler knows the exact time Bruce Wayne's parents were murdered?
Of course he does. He's obsessive.
Okay, fair enough. But is that public knowledge the minute they died?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That was straining some credibility. There was also another one.
I mean, you could say the same thing about Bruce Wayne, maybe. Like, how would he know the exact minute?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's in a police report, but you'd still have to guess at it. Like, you wouldn't know the exact minute.
Yeah.
But it was like I think 10:48 was what was on the clock, and for a second I was like, "Is this like the time?" Well, it has to be the time because that can't be a date. There's no 48th day of a month.
Well, and look, I think what happened was when Bruce Wayne was little, Joe Chill fired the gun, and on his hand there was a watch, and it said 10:48 when he fired that gun. So
There you go. He put the gun under the pearls. You could see the watch for shot back.
Yeah, and Joe Chill is a lefty, so that's why he had it on his watch hand, and so that's how. Yeah.
Exactly, and then when the
totally simple. I don't know what so
it hit the watch so that Bruce Wayne could see the exact minute.
The muzzle flare had a reflection that caused a light on the watch so that he could see it. It's engraved in his brain.
Also, I thought it was kind of cute that when well, first of all, that because I didn't realize at first that we were setting up a romance with Riddler and Catwoman, and instead of Riddler getting her phone number, she gets his. And it's kind of cute that he has a question mark for the last number, but that's like the worst riddle ever because all you have to do is dial 9 different numbers, and like eventually you'll get there.
That is smooth. I gotta try that sometime. Hey, you want my number? I'm gonna make you work just a little bit for it.
See, I assumed it was really just funny. A 7 because it's like that, but
it could be, or it could be something else.
No, but it was a question mark.
No, I know, but a question mark has the same kind of like basic look as a 7. I assumed it was that, but it could have been any number.
It could have been any number.
I like that a lot. Yeah, that was smooth. He's got some game.
See, I think she ends up. I think she ends up being enamored with him just because he's weirdly charming in this. And because I think she sees herself in his daughter. I think that has something to do with it.
Maybe. And he also does kind of look like Edward Norton. You know, that's a handsome guy. So
those Edwards.
Yeah.
He has the same initials.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Did Edward Norton name his daughter Edie?
I'm gonna look this up. Hold on.
Yeah, but he spelled the last E with a question mark.
That's a 7.
That's a bet.
Guys, we're at an hour and a half. Is there anything else we need to mention about this book before we move on? I overall actually quite liked it. I didn't like the climax, but I think overall I like this book a lot more than you guys did.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. I was disappointed with it, but it's not a complete loss. I'd say it's more of a mixed bag for me.
That's what I was gonna say too.
I will say I've not gushed enough about the art. I love the art in this a lot. It's so good. It's like, I might just go back to this, at least a few issues of it here and there, just to look at the art. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like I said, all the Black Label books are getting their talent apparently, because the few Black Label stuff I've read is like really nice looking.
Well, Austin and I are going to come back this month and do at least a couple more comic reviews. And Austin, there's one that we actually talked about doing that I forgot to put on that list, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get to it, but I'll mention it to you later. But we had one big thing we were going to do this month that I don't know if we're going to have time for. But anyway.
Oh, I don't even know what it is offhand. Okay.
I don't want to mention it because then it'll sound like we're announcing it, and I don't know if we can get to it. But
okay.
Connor and I are going to be doing most of the not Batman stuff that we're doing during this month. We've got a lot of new movies to review, and this is going to be the first month in a long time that I'll be reviewing a whopping 4 movies. It never happens anymore, but we've got one every week this month, and we're going to do a double feature on Sunday if I can get to the theater and get both movies watched for both Creed and 65. That's the plan for this week, and then every weekend after that we've got another movie. Connor, I know Shazam 2 is one of them.
I think that's what, in 2 weeks. I know March is like a new big movie every week, but I don't know what's coming out.
Yeah, there's Shazam, and then there's John Wick 4.
John Wick 4
the week after that. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And that's the one I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just so much. There's like Scream 6. Like, geez, there's so many movies.
Yeah,
I think you mean Scrut/VI is the official title, Connor.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
I don't know
and
what I was thinking.
there's some biopic coming out that I was thinking about. Well, I know there's a couple biopics soon. Was it the?
Is it the Tetris movie?
No. That's a little later. And I will review that, but I think it was the one about the Jordan shoe. Is that this month?
Oh yeah, Air. Yeah. I think that's April, but
Is that okay? If that and Tetris are both in April, I want to do a double feature review on that, because I think that would be really funny if we did Air and Tetris together.
I will say Edward Norton does have 2 children. But I don't know their names, so I'm sorry, I could not find that information.
I don't know, but
It's not
for
Edie.
years, it's like maybe for like a year, when Iron Man and Incredible Hulk came out, I was like, oh yeah, you got Hulk is Edward Norton Jr. and Iron Man is Robert Downey Jr. And it took me like forever to realize that Jr. was not part of his name. And I don't know why.
Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Lately, I've had a couple folks, Connor, that have complained that we're all homogenized and in an echo chamber here on Geekvolution, and we all agree on everything. So I just want to point out that we did not agree on this book.
We did not. But that doesn't mean we can't have cool conversations. I like hearing your input on this one.
I hope you guys both die in a tire fire.
What happened to the ventriloquist in this universe? That's what I want to know.
Probably the same thing as the imposter. He's just like sitting at home wishing his dad was dead.
Because, like, Scarface wouldn't age. Like, you could do something kind of fun with an elderly ventriloquist, I would think.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
So,
like
if he had a son, would he just pick up the same Scarface dummy and it's like, no, I am son of Scarface? I don't know.
oh, that's good too. I was thinking ventriloquist is in a home, and Scarface is like, "Don't take your pills."
A Son of Scarface is a great name for a Black Label book. They should totally do that.
Yeah, that should be the old man ventriloquist book.
Yeah, real quick, we need to get going, but we should have had that conversation earlier. Let's just real briefly talk about this. Admittedly, we are doing too many of these, right? Like this is turning into when you've completely run out of ideas, you gotta do this, and it's cool when we make it fresh again. And like, I really liked for the most part, Ninja Turtles Ronin, and I'm a big Old Man Logan fan, but like, at some point everybody's gonna get this story, right? It's either this or it's like Marvel The End. Like, we do it with everything.
We made Old Man Quill at Marvel. Like, that was only a few years ago. I don't know why we needed that.
Really?
Yeah, well, and they had the Hawkeye one before that, but at least that's
at least a prequel to Old Man Logan.
I was gonna say,
I
at least
can
spin off of Old
understand
Man Logan. It's that character, and then DC did. Now, to be fair, maybe they were kind of parroting that whole thing when they did this, because I didn't read it. But DC had Old Lady Harley.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was that one that we did not that long ago, Cap, where I said every character has this, but I can't remember what book it was we were reading.
I remember listening to this episode, and I can't remember what it was for.
Yeah,
we did one that we haven't even brought up. What, I wonder what it
no,
was.
we did a review a few weeks ago that was like one of these Old Man books, and that was how I learned about Old Man Quill. Was somebody said it in the comments?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I really just can't wait till we get to Old Man
John
Adams
Ty
Swain.
says it was Wonder Woman Dead Earth.
Well, that was quite a while back, but you're right.
Yeah.
That is kind of one of those. I forgot about that. That's also a book
That's also Black Label.
I remember really liking, but I'm not remembering a ton of details about right now.
Yeah, I remember Wonder Woman killed Superman. I remember that.
Spencer says they were all one-shots for a thing called the Wastelanders that tied into the Old Man Logan universe. What were all one-shot? Like, was Old Man Quill part of that? I thought that was a series.
I think that was a miniseries, yeah. If I ever work at Marvel, I'm gonna make Old Man Thing. It's like really awkward of a title.
Old Man Thing. That's so good.
Oh,
Goofster earlier, I meant to bring this up, said that the lady who they called Red Tornado is the original Red Tornado in the 40s.
I'm still just gonna imagine in my head that she's Granny Goodness. I don't care what anybody thinks.
That's one of those characters that pops up, and I'm going, this is probably a real DC character, but I've never heard of this person. I don't know what I'm looking at.
Bibbo or whatever. Whenever he shows up in Superman, I'm like, I think he's from something, all right.
Well, yeah, he's from Superman.
Okay.
So that's a Dan Jurgens creation. He's around right before Death of Superman.
Oh, okay.
And so I grew up with that character.
Who's Dan Turpin? Like, he's in Final Crisis, and like I hear people reference him in some DC works, and like, who is this guy?
He's a cop in Superman comics.
Okay.
Okay. That might also be a Dan Jurgens thing. I'm not sure. But yeah, Turpin. Wait, where did you first say you saw him? What were you talking about?
Final Crisis. Final Crisis.
So the earliest Turpin I know about is 90s, so I don't know if he predates that. He might be one of those characters that's in the supporting cast, like along with Emil Hamilton. Like that might be late 80s, early 90s stuff. I'm sure none of that predates John Byrne. I would be shocked if it did. But like a lot of people, I first saw Dan Turpin in the Superman animated series.
Okay.
Yeah, where he's just Jack Kirby.
Because he's famously patterned after Jack Kirby.
That makes sense then, because in Final Crisis, Dan Turpin is the vessel that, Darkseid goes into. So
and
they probably did that because Darkseid kills Dan Turpin in the Superman animated series. I bet that's why they did that.
That's what I was gonna say. That's super cool in that show, is that Jack Kirby gets killed by Darkseid.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And you just see the like shadows of his, or like the soot of his feet planted in the ground.
Nice.
Where he disintegrates, and then that's the most actual death on screen those series ever did, I think.
And Spencer says that it was Old Man Star-Lord, Old Lady Black Widow, etc., stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe Old Man Quill was a spinoff of Old Man Star-Lord. So who knows?
Well, yeah, they didn't call it Star-Lord. It was Old Man Quill.
Okay.
Yep.
I want to see Old Man Adam Strange at some point, if we haven't done that already. Give me that. I want to see an elderly spaceman going from world to world with a ray gun.
We should just get as obscure as humanly possible.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Oh, Josh, I didn't know that. Josh goes on and put in a $5 super chat and says Turpin is a Golden Age character from the 40s that Kirby brought back for New Guys in the 70s. I never understood why he was made to look like Jack Kirby in that show. I never got that. And now I know. Thanks, Josh. I like how Josh felt the need to, and appreciate the super chat, but I like how he felt the need to put in a super chat to call me out for not knowing that.
So we like Josh.
Cap's saying random crap again. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I better give him money. What an idiot.
Here's $5 to prove you're stupid.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get going. Old man the century. Anyway,
let's do it.
We'll see you later, Old Tree Groot.
That probably already exists.
That's just Treebeard, right?
Yeah. He's got his children, and they're just the trees from the Wizard of Oz. They're just the apples people.
So, yeah, this is what our reviews kind of degenerate into sometimes toward the end now. Austin, I really appreciate you doing this stuff regularly with me, man. You have not ruined the channel at all in any way.
I love how sarcastic that was.
No, I really appreciate the excuse to be as loose as we've gotten. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. We're going to go get going, but I will be back again tomorrow night with a Captain Logan show, and we're going to talk about the trailer and the casting reveals for the new animated Ninja Turtles movie that Seth Rogen is doing, Mutant Mayhem, and we'll answer your questions like always. And then Austin and I are reviewing another recent DC comic on Wednesday, or comic series that we were supposed to do last week, and I wasn't able to get to it. But we're doing Far Sector on Wednesday, so if you have a chance to read that, take a look at it. That is 12 issues, so I'm going to start reading that like immediately. And in the meantime, we'll see you later. I was Captain Logan, and we had Austin the Day Ghost.
Whoa. I don't have anything clever to say.
And Connor Nielsen.
Meow.
Perfect. I can't roll my R's either.
Bye, folks.